A media syndicate that he runs like a family business. A $40 billion business that on the Forbes list of the world's most powerful people, he's number 13, right after the president of Russia.
Overseeing media properties now on 5 continents, including the Wall Street Journal, Fox News, the New York Post, and 20th Century Fox.
So began a pattern for Murdoch's career. Hostile takeovers, a rapid expansion, bold risk-taking, and a hands-on approach to running his business.
Rupert Murdoch stepping down after using his fortune to build a media empire, concentrate power, and accelerate a now well-known divisive cycle of right-wing politics and often harsh propaganda that, no matter what else, reinforce the wealth, power, and elite perks of the rich, like himself. And this brings us to our special report tonight, digging a little deeper into this story. And if you take our word for it, we look at what are the most important stories in a given day, and tonight, this is one of them. Murdoch unusual for how long he lasted, how acute he's always been about his project. All the way back in 1967, he was invoking high-minded language to argue for his own attempt at profitable business alternatives to what he then viewed as the antiquated press.
Freedom of the press mustn't be one-sided just for a publisher to speak as he pleases, try and bully the community. There must be an alternative. And so long as there are alternatives, then I think that the public's very well protected.
You get a different vibe when you go back far enough. He's talking a lot there, talking the talk about protecting public interest. But Murdoch was also using that rhetoric, that type of appeal, because he was the upstart challenger. He saw opportunity, profits, and power in newspapers, and he was willing to bend or break rules and really go places that the more traditional or respectful press would not do as often at the time. He first ventured out of Australia with the purchase of a British paper, the News of the World, then marched into America, first among equals in his portfolio, and he started small, the local paper in San Antonio in the 70s, and tested out his ideas by trying to dial up excitement. He called his goal there to turn that paper into a screamer, even if accuracy was slipping, according to its own publisher. Now, the United States has stronger free speech protections than most countries. Now, we often in America view that as a matter of freedom or democracy, but it also has very clear business implications. So the First Amendment protects people when they talk or protest. It also protects media businesses when they operate. Now, Murdoch saw that a very certain way, and he, again, was coming from the outside, from a different country. He viewed it as a capitalist edge for that industry compared to other places he was operating his companies. He basically eyed the U.S. market for those legal press protections, and that enabled him to legally push the line. It would also later prove part of his undoing when Murdoch wrongly thought the First Amendment would somehow protect or limit his costs in the defamation case I mentioned over Trump's lies. Now, back then, as a budding mogul, Murdoch saw the media business as more powerful than other profit centers because it could shape public views. He got a vast audience. He became a dominant force on cable, also across not only American politics, starting with the right, but really more broadly in shaping public opinion in America. Fox certainly impacts its own viewers, but it also proved effective at inserting or projecting claims, ideas, themes, and propaganda into a much broader discourse than its own viewership. In many states, politically, for example, there are Democrats and liberal candidates who needed to deal with the channel. They would go on it as candidates or spokespersons, especially in its earlier pre-MAGA era, and they had to deal with voters also impacted by Fox. Now, unlike other traditional press outlets, watching Fox has been correlated with making its viewers less informed than if you had no news at all, according to independent studies. Also, viewers are more likely to have inaccurate views on a specific basket of topics, the political ones that Murdoch's empire pushed, from environmental policies, which might cost businesses like him money, to recent COVID clashes. Few outlets in our history have become that influential. And even Democrats who wished otherwise really didn't see a point in denying Murdoch and Fox's influence. I want to show you something you may remember. Barack Obama cited Fox to explain exactly how he had a political challenge of dealing with people who viewed him through the Fox slant. Just as Drake once said, I know it's far-fetched, like I threw 100 meters. If I was you, I wouldn't like me either. Obama had a version of that, saying if I watched Fox, I wouldn't vote for me either.
If I watched Fox News, I wouldn't vote for me either, right? Because, you've got this screen, this funhouse mirror through which people are receiving information. How to break through that is a big challenge.
That was November 2016. Obama, eyeing Trump and a lot of other issues, was obviously well aware of how that filter was working. The challenge intensified when Trump replaced Obama in the White House. And the format Fox built sometimes got out of its own control. Lies and conspiracies became a core part of how the right rules lately. It was not always that way. It also challenged its own loss in the insurrection through a campaign of lies that was fundamentally different than past election controversies we've had. Fox was amplifying those far-right voices. It was transforming the GOP. And while Murdoch may have been accurate, that is, technically correct, that there was a business market for such material, well, with those attacks on custom, truth, or even legal limits, Fox spawned more extreme competition, both on television with channels like Newsmax and One America, as well as online, as well as in the burgeoning podcast space, where people like Alex Jones offered something even farther out there, which then threatened the brand that Murdoch had built and pushed them from the right. And there are many different ways in our report here that we could discuss how today's Republican Party has gotten so different from the past. Fox is a huge vector of that, a driver of that, not the only one, but a big one. We could also show you the voting data and the polling on the right-wing agenda, on things it does that might really shock Republicans from 20 years ago if they woke up and saw attacks on police and the FBI and Blue Lives Don't Matter anymore, the soft and sometimes direct embrace of seditionists. Look, we could make this point in many different ways, but to put it quite clearly right now, we hand the mic to Taylor Swift, because when she was explaining, while she had an open mind for some traditional conservatives, she stepped up to oppose Trump and to advance women's rights because she was seeing a Republican Party that was a long way from the past generation.
First of all, these aren't your dad's celebrities and these aren't your dad's Republicans.
These aren't your dad's Republicans, she explained before